Hello and welcome to Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk. We are live. That was the smoothest intro we've ever done because I looked back the other day, and I'm usually just frazzled over here trying to pin the tweet to our Twitter profile. But hello everyone, I'm Andy Krutzinger, your co-host, along with my man Hunter Mole over here, proudly sporting his Kansas City stuff.
Yep.
The Chiefs won again, one way or another, and we got Nick Steffens on the ones and twos. This is, again, Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk. We are on Washington Live's YouTube and Facebook and Spotify, audio and video. Mount Pleasant Live's Facebook and Fairfield Live's Facebook. You know, we're coming off the heels of our most watched show in history.
Man.
For good or bad, we had some controversy last week, but we're back to business and sports and stuff this week. So first off, Hunter, how's life?
Well, Chiefs heading back to the Super Bowl, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Pretty good. Did Mitch Bowles pay advertising fees for that sweatshirt?
Nope.
All right.
I don't think we'll get anything.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll see. Everyone, Mitch, if you're over there, come on. You got.
I'm going to tell him to watch the show, say we threw your name around a little bit today.
He'll have the next one. We are busy, actually. We're goofing around, but we are busy because in the last week, there's been like 100 basketball games. There's some big wrestling, postseason wrestling coming up tomorrow even, and then we've got some bowling to talk about. So we're going to jump right into it. How about that? You want to jump right into it?
Let's do it.
And we discussed with all the craziness the last few weeks who we're going to talk about first. How about little Mount Pleasant boys? Because in the latest Iowa High School Athletic Association rankings, along with Waco, who's been in there, I think they're at 4th right now, right? They go between 3rd and 4th between that and the AP.
I thought they were 3rd last time I checked, but
I'll have to check the paper. I'm pretty sure they might have went back to 4th.
Let me double check while you're talking about
yeah, double check. Mount Pleasant is now number 9. Actually, 9 was going to be our number of the day because there are a lot of win streaks and stuff that have hit 9, but they hit 10 in between when I come up with that little idea. So, Mount Pleasant boys basketball team has been on a roll. They beat Keokuk on Friday, which put them one step closer to 3 or 4?
4.
4, yeah. I think they might have got bumped down one.
Yeah, which is surprising.
Yeah, it's sad. Come on, pollsters at the Iowa High School Athletic Association. Anyway, but thanks for throwing Mount Pleasant in there. Now we got 2 teams in there. They beat Keokuk on Friday. Last night they were at Iowa City Regina, and I've got the box score on my phone when I pull it up here. Fun fact, Iowa City Regina and Mount Pleasant have now played each of the last 4 years and 5 times since 2009. Mount Pleasant has won all 5. Pretty tough to beat Regina in any sport.
They're just
5 times.
They're one of those schools that seems like they're, going to bring, they're going to make it hard on you in any sport, like you said. So
yeah, but Mount Pleasant was at Iowa City Regina last night. Only 32. Actually, they were trailing by 3 after one quarter, 32-24 at halftime. And Hunter, you want to guess who took over in the second half? Without knowing, you haven't looked at it.
I guess Peyton Higgins.
Peyton Higgins, 20 points in the second half. He did it again. He did it against Mid-Prairie. He's done it against about every conference opponent. And 20 points in the half last night, 29 total for Higgins. Aiden Ashton had 23. We got 12 out of Nate Stroud and 5 out of Owen Vansickle. There were only 4 scorers. Actually, a little foreshadowing to something I'm going to talk about in the girls' basketball roundup, but because Winfield did that too in girls' basketball. 4 scorers, and they still knocked off Regina. So I don't know what more to say about them. Oh, I need to, before we get into the other teams, the SEC boys basketball race is down to, in reality, 2 teams that can win it.
Burlington and Mount Pleasant.
Burlington and Mount Pleasant. They play in Mount Pleasant on Thursday night. It is basically the de facto conference championship. Burlington has one of the Lee County teams to end the season, the conference slate, so they're very heavily favored. So basically, if Burlington beats Mount Pleasant, it'll be a tie, and they beat Mount Pleasant twice now. There's a tiebreaker on who gets it, but that would basically clinch it for Burlington as long as they wrapped it up. And Mount Pleasant is 1 game above Burlington, but with 2 very hard games.
Yeah.
Burlington at home on Thursday. If they win, they're clinched. They are the champions. And if they don't, they got to try and get a win at Fairfield, which Fairfield is a tough place to play, and they're playing pretty good too. So Mount Pleasant boys, 9th in the conference. They have won 10 straight games. They have not lost in January. There are only 2 losses since the first game of the year were 2-point losses. One was a buzzer beater. So red hot at the right time because those tournament brackets coming out soon. So you got to see the other half. You got to see Mount Pleasant girls last night renew their rivalry with Fairfield. How'd it go?
Yeah, I mean, the first time around it was, Mount Pleasant pretty much, handled the Trojans pretty well, and that it was kind of early on in that one, and this time around, Fairfield stuck with them there in the first quarter. Sorry about that, but Mount Pleasant led 8-5 after one. Ended up winning this one. Sorry, I probably should say the score, but ended up winning this one 49-25. The Panthers did, but Fairfield, was talking to Coach Becker after the game, and they're saying, she says she was telling me that we stay with teams for a quarter, that we just gotta you could put it all together for for the game's entirety. But we kind of saw them stick with the Panthers on both ends of the floor. Like I said, 8-5 after the first. Pretty much after that, it was all Panthers, 19-5 in favor of them in the second. Led 27-10 at the half. Third quarter, 15-9 in favor of the Panthers, 42-19 heading into the fourth, and then Mount Pleasant ended on with a 7-6 final quarter there for another win. And obviously, the Panthers needed to win at Keokuk win at Keokuk would have helped them in their conference race last week against Keokuk. I believe Keokuk's 2 games ahead. They fell in that one. Let me double check here. 60-35 last Friday was at that one too down in Keokuk. They're a hard place to go and play.
And that they would have been tied for first if they would have
been tied. But
Keokuk.
Tough loss there, obviously dealing with some injuries as well. And they played Mediapolis over the weekend. Obviously, Mediapolis, I believe I think they're up to number.
I think 15. They're 12. I think they're up to number 12, 15, actually. There's the new rankings today. Yep.
Yeah, 12 and 2A, 74-55 loss over in Mediapolis on Saturday. So, Mount Pleasant getting back on track. Obviously, Fairfield is struggling here. I think their last win was Van Buren County back in last year, if I was there at that one. So, Fairfield showing improvement, just Mount Pleasant too much in this one.
Yeah, Fairfield, much like Washington, we'll talk about it a little bit. Also, the regions came out. They're on our Twitter at Union Sports page. We linked the regions for 1A, 2A, and 3A, of which almost every single one of our teams except Mount Pleasant is in one of those 3 because Fairfield moved back to 3A. And they have some long trips. I think Washington's up at Assumption or Fairfield's up at Assumption.
I think so.
And then the other is in Cedar Rapids. They both have long trips and very North Scott. Maybe they have very tough games. So tough road ahead. Let's see if they can pull something out. But as we said all year, Fairfield's one of the newer teams, one of the younger teams, and they've got plenty coming back next year. So who do we have next on the docket? Probably the Fairfield boys.
Yeah.
And the Fairfield boys are a team that I covered on Thursday night. And much like the Mount Pleasant boys, the Fairfield boys have been playing a lot of their best basketball here in the last month or so. They lost to Liberty, and they had a bad half against Mount Pleasant. But other than that, I've covered a lot of Fairfield because I had the wrong one moved up here. But Fairfield played at against Fort Madison on Thursday. It was a weird Thursday SEC game. They used to be all on Fridays, and that's a reminder for something for later. But the Trojans took that game. If I can get why don't you talk about something here, Hunter? Have you seen them?
I was just going to say, you talk about Fairfield having a kind of hot streak, as of late, coming, I believe they won 3 straight, but they just had a tough loss. I believe it was, I can't remember what day it was on. You got to double check. Saturday or Monday. Monday they took on Albia, and Albia has been a little tough team. I know Mount Pleasant handled them pretty easily, but must have been a tough night for the Trojans in that one. I was kind of looking through their stats, and it seemed like they just Albia was just, I guess name of the game, just topped them in scoring. The game ended up going to overtime. It was 51-51 heading into the fourth, and then they ended up getting outscored 15-5 in that fourth quarter. So, Albia wins that one. That kind of ended the hot streak, 3-game winning streak, as you kind of mentioned. So, Fairfield's sitting at 7-7, and they've got a big week ahead here. This is on the boys' side anyway. But.
Yeah. By the way, I was on the right score sheet I had on my phone here, but I accidentally labeled it Fairfield versus Mount Pleasant. That was not Fairfield versus Mount Pleasant. It was Fairfield versus Fort Madison. And if you watched the show last week, it was a little bit of a controversial week. Not really Fairfield's fault at all that it was. But they seemed to have that out of their minds because they rolled over Fort Madison 57-41. And Max Wheaton and J.J. Lane combined for 56 points. 32 for Max, 24 for JJ. One of the best performances that I've seen them play. It was an up and down game. Of course, of all the big guys, you want running the floor. Max is potential D1 tight end, so you know that he's going to be quick enough. And they just, as I said, they rolled through Fort Mass, and Fort Mass is a team that's played a couple of our teams close. They played Mount Pleasant within one.
Yep.
So Fairfield's looking pretty strong right now, and I did ask them about the stuff from last week with the scuffle with Iowa City High and all that stuff, and both Coach Mick Flattery and Max Wheaton both said it's kind of out of our mind. We talked about it for a couple of minutes, and we're just moving on. So they had moved on, and Albia is a really tough team. Washington had struggled over there in Albia earlier this year too. So, but Fairfield's got a couple more left, and I'm very excited for the boys tournament bracket. I thought before Mount Pleasant jumped into the standings that Fairfield and Washington might be a collision course to be in a 4 or 5 game when the sub-state bracket comes out. Now I'm feeling more like they could be a 3 and a 4 because I think Mount Pleasant's going to get a 2 seed.
Yep.
So it's a little different, but I was excited for us to potentially see that bracket again.
Yeah, and you know I would say about the Fairfield boys. Obviously, they lose in overtime to Albia here, and Albia is a tough place to play. But they're 7-7, but it seems like even looking at last year and this year, it's like one of those things you say. It's like Fairfield's not one of those teams you want to play, come postseason.
No,
you don't really
not.
You don't really want to meet up with them because as you said, them scoring 56 points, Wheaton and Lane there. I mean, at any given night, those two we talk about Tate Allen too. Riley Perkins can stroke it from outside. Yep. So you get they're on their game. They're tough to beat and they can hang with anyone. So.
It's crazy. They're 7-8, which I thought part of the Iowa City High thing is Iowa City High had beaten Xavier right before a few games before the Fairfield game.
Xavier's number 2 in 3A.
Number 2 in 3A. And I think you come into Fairfield and they had a losing record, and you think, oh man, this is a SEC team with a losing record. The SEC is not your grandma's SEC from a couple of years ago, where somebody really had to battle to be with the other conferences. The SEC is just as good as any conference in 3A, and that's why I think they'll probably get a favorable grouping here when it comes to postseason play. But the SEC teams just seem to dominate the non-conference games.
Yep.
Fairfield rolled Iowa City High. As we mentioned, Mount Pleasant beat Regina. Other than a couple of Burlington was undefeated besides the SEC for a while there. And they kind of showed their muscle last year in the 4A tournament. So there was another example of that on Monday, and we got a new school record hunter for the Washington Demon boys basketball team as in a game that I thought was going to be a classic. I told one of the Mid-Prairie fans right before, I was like, this is going down to the wire. This is two teams that are pretty evenly strength. Washington 75-53 winners over Mid-Prairie on Monday. Ethan Patterson scores 40 points, including 9 3-pointers, a school record that he had held with his buddy Kason Bailey, who graduated last year. He's no longer, he bumped his friend out of the record books.
I was at that game.
You were at the game when Kason hit 8?
Bailey, he had 8 with, I think, 39 points.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, and Mid-Prairie plays up and down, and the whole game was up and down, and Washington only plays six guys, sometimes 7. And I kept thinking, and I told Mid-Prairie coach Darren Lambert after the game, I kept thinking, like, it gets to 9 and 10, Mid-Prairie can really make a run here, but Ethan never let up. There was also a moment in this game where there were back-to-back dunks, which were really cool. Sean Dodds had a really good one for a Mid-Prairie two-hander, and then on the very next possession, Aiden Six came down and threw one down. I think it might have been his first or second of his career. And so the place was going crazy, but Ethan Patterson really calmed the Mid-Prairie fans down. Not often you see that place get a little quiet, but he just kept hitting them. As I said, a school record. By the way, my alarm earlier, I have a shout-out. This is our first shout-out. Let me get my page up here because I had promised a shout-out to the Washington boys basketball managers. Josh Anderson, Raphael Miranda, and Grant Whistler. They promised that they were going to watch the show today if I shouted them out. They actually said they were going to make their teachers show them at school. So if you're watching this on replay afterwards because you got alpha out of that, shame. But they wanted to let everyone know that they're the best managers in the nation.
All right.
And they'll be on our Smiles page on Monday, Smiles. So.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. I think that's the last note. Oh, I should probably say who scored here. Oh, well, Ethan had 40. Aiden Six had 14. Logan McDowell and AJ Six had 10 apiece. Logan McDowell had 8 points before you blinked. And Ace Peck and Cameron Pickard both had 13 for Mid-Prairie. Alex Bean had 11, so a lot of the same guys that do a lot of the damage for them. It was a really rare off night. Yeah, I don't even think it was an off night for Mid-Prairie. I just think that Patterson shot the lights out. So Washington boys, just like the Fairfield boys, it's like everyone in the SEC is kind of heating up at the right time here.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch when the area teams start clicking like that, and it's always nice. You see Mount Pleasant get the recognition, but it's like, they're ranked, but it's like Washington and Fairfield, if you can even say they're behind them, it's like, any
right
given
there.
night, it's right there with them. It's like neck and neck. So, that's one thing that always intrigues me. It's like, okay, Mount Pleasant's, in the top 10, and now it's like, how far is, the Fairfield, Washington behind them, or you know what I mean? Even Burlington's in that conversation too. I mean, obviously Burlington's a state tournament team last year, and Burlington, was getting beat by Washington and things like that.
Yeah, last year they were.
They beat the number one team in the state to make it to state. So it's like,
Well, I did a little bracketology yesterday, and I think that either Xavier or Marion will get the number 1 seed in the local sub-state. This all depends. If Mount Pleasant can scoot up to number 8, they could get a 1 seed. A la WMU girls. We'll talk about that a little later. And then I think Mount Pleasant's going to get the 2. And I think that the other SEC teams will be in there, in order: Washington, Fairfield, Fort Madison, Keokuk. There's one more team. That's 7 teams. So there's one more team. I don't know if they pick someone who's a little higher up than Washington and Fairfield, and that would be a 4-5 game since they're both about 500. I don't know if they'd recognize the strength of the conference and put somebody in that's a little towards the bottom, which would make it, Mount Pleasant 2, Washington 3, Fairfield 4. Of course, the districts are going to come out and the coaches are going to rank them, but the Iowa High School Athletic Association looks at that and kind of has an idea of where it will be. But it's going to be if I'm Xavier or Marion and I'm get the 1 seed and I'm playing Fairfield or Washington in the second round and then having to beat Mount Pleasant, that's not a very easy task. So
it's like even last year, Fairfield took on Marion in the first round. Obviously, I think it ended up being like a 15-point game. I had to go back and double check, but I mean, they were giving them a game for at least 3 quarters in that one. So I mean, it's like the teams down here ain't nothing,
just sniff at.
It's. I mean, they're going to give you a game no matter what. So
yeah. Oh, I remember when the Fairfield kids were younger. I think sophomores, and they played up at Davenport Assumption. Mount Pleasant, Washington played the game before, and they put a scare into Assumption. Was ranked 1 or 2, I think, going into that, and they almost lost the first round to Fairfield. They were an 8 seed. I wanted to get the girls game up here, and while I was fiddling around earlier, I messed up my stats from the Washington and Mid-Prairie girls games, but that happened on Monday as well. Mid-Prairie ended up winning that one, but I'll tell you what, the Washington girls shot the lights out. Adeline Long had 3 3-pointers before most people had their stuff in their seats. The first quarter, she ended up with she had 4 in the first half. Washington was right in it. It was 16-15 Mid-Prairie after 1 quarter, and quick math, 33-24 Mid-Prairie at halftime. And as I said, threes were flying in. Ended up a 55-40 Mid-Prairie win. Also, Landry Pasha had 16 points in that, 14 of which were in the second half. Mid-Prairie they won again last night. The Mid-Prairie girls have now won 10 games in a row. They have not lost in January, and they have one more game left on the schedule, and it's the de facto River Valley South Championship at Regina on Friday night. Regina beat them by 1 the first time. Regina's a game ahead of Mid-Prairie. If Mid-Prairie wins, they are co-South champions. So that would be not really coming out of nowhere, but I mean, when you have to win out, run the table, basically, not to quote Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, right now for Mid-Prairie, it's shaking out it's kind of similar to last year. You know what I mean? Like, last year I think they were kind of slept on, and then all of a sudden they were playing in the regional championship for a chance at state, and obviously ended up losing to Davenport Assumption there up in Iowa City West. I was at that one, but Mid-Prairie is kind of one of those teams I feel like aren't getting a lot of I guess light kind of shed on them, but
they're not ranked.
Another dangerous team that's that
they're ranked.
I wouldn't want to play.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's kind of every Mid-Prairie girls sport besides cross country and track, they always dominated that. But the Mid-Prairie girls, team sports, I guess you could call them. Girls basketball last year, you saw their softball team start to rise. Yep. You saw their volleyball team to rise. That's just basically having a lot of the same kids. By the way, Alex Murphy and Adeline Long, 13 each for Washington. So they're able to slow Adeline Long down a little bit. She's a freshman. If she can get hot like that and hit 4 in a row like she did, though, Washington's going to be pretty darn tough for years to come. We already knew they were.
Well, yeah, and looking at Washington, obviously, you mentioned about them is like obviously they had that 5-0 to start the season, or 5-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I've been impressed with the younger kids, the freshmen, that are sophomores. Obviously, you mentioned Adeline Long, Leighton Messenger, both freshmen there. Been standouts for them this season. mix them in with the senior class that already has been playing at the varsity level, and it's been working out. Obviously, they've kind of struggled here as late. Obviously, I mentioned they were 5-1 on 1.7, 7-10 now, I believe. But it's going to be exciting to watch those kids as they kind of continue to evolve into the varsity. Into the, varsity level, you could say.
Yeah, they're going to next year they'll be one of the best teams in the SEC. So one more thing basketball-wise, because we got a lot of wrestling to talk about when we come back here. Iowa Wesleyan men's basketball has won their 20th game in a row. The Tiger men have won, that's a school record for wins, 20 in men's basketball, which Iowa Wesleyan's men's basketball is a great program, and they have the NAIA high of this year. No one's got a bigger winning streak than them right now, so red hot. So basketball-wise, got Iowa Wesleyan, both teams could make a run. Mid Prairie girls, all the boys teams those are the big schools, and we got some more basketball. Before we talk about wrestling, we've got a couple conference championships, so a lot of success in the Southeast Iowa.
It's going to be exciting Friday night.
Sports Union, we'll talk about that a little bit. And speaking of success, we should probably visit our successful sponsors because we're 20 minutes into this show. So 2-minute commercial, more stuff because we're jam-packed. We're not even halfway through, so stick with us.
Federation Bank is a locally owned bank providing award-winning customer service. We believe that we are more than just a federation of banks, but a federation of communities, serving Brighton, Richland, Wellman, and Washington, Iowa. Federation Bank's highly skilled staff is here to make sure you are able to accomplish your personal and professional goals, whatever they may be. Federation Bank, your family bank.
Hospice isn't a place, it's a type of care that focuses on living. Servicing a 7-county area, the Hospice of Washington County staff of nurses, social work, hospice aides, spiritual and grief support, volunteers, music and massage therapists are able to provide free end-of-life care where the patient lives. We write wills, give consent for organ donation, but rarely is there a plan for what we would want the final phase of our lives. At Hospice of Washington County, we encourage our patients to be in charge of their healthcare decisions while maintaining quality of life.
At the Capper Auto Group, we put our customers' needs first and understand that everyone is as different as the vehicle they select. We offer new Ford, Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram vehicles in a friendly environment that puts you in the driver's seat. When it comes to service, we maintain factory-trained technicians and competitive pricing. The Capper Auto Group still believes that service after the sale provides the best customer experience. Come see the Capper experience for yourself.
Tammy takes the time and has the personal interest in each one of us. I don't worry about what's going to happen because I know my policy is taken care of.
She pulls what I need and puts it together, which is the program I get from her.
Every year she calls around September or so and says, there's changes again, and I'm going to do the best thing for you. It's been perfect. She does a great job.
Welcome back to a packed episode of the Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk. We are live with Andy Krutzinger, Hunter Muller, and Nick Steffens, and we are talking a little bit of high school basketball. And there was some conference championships wrapped up last night.
Yep.
Now, the math on this is the writing's been on the walls a little bit, especially for this first time I'm about to talk about, but I'm going to go with the girls roundup to start things out, Hunter, and then you got the boys afterwards, and a lot of the same teams will be talked about. But we're going to start with the girls roundup from last night. Small school girls, Winfield Mount Union, now ranked 8th. Apologies for everyone who's reading the newspaper today because we put out the girls rankings in for today, and then new rankings came out today.
Yeah, and I still have Waco on number 3 in mine. I just updated it online. So the paper, they'll
smart.
say on number 3, but now
mistakes.
They are number 4. But.
Right there. Now the paper tomorrow now has a mistake.
I'm
as
sure
well.
the Waco fans won't mind them being.
Yeah, it's better to be rated a little higher. Well, also the AP and the association, whatever. Anyway, Winfield Mount Union 61-28 winners over Highland last night in girls basketball. That means that they've got the North wrapped up alone. They would have had to had a little bit of a meltdown here at the end for them not to be the champions. That wasn't going to happen. Sarah Burton, 9 points for Highland. We didn't get leading scores for Winfield quite yet on that, but we do know they were up 24-4 after one quarter. They are now they were up 36-11 at halftime. The win makes them 19-0. It's their second championship in the North in 3 seasons. And Winfield girls basketball fans, not only have you now moved up to number 8 in the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union rankings, You did so right in time because those top 8 get a 1 seed in the regionals, and Winfield Mount Union is the number 1 seed in the local regional, which they have not been the last few years. And
I remember looking at the bracket. I can't remember who they'll play. The winner of
they might Holy Trinity's the favorite
Holy Trinity,
in the game.
Wapello. isn't it? Holy Trinity Wapello.
Holy Trinity Wapello. And then you could look at, again, we tweeted out the brackets or the link to the brackets. Only 1A through 3A is out, but that's about everybody.
I was really looking at it, and it's looking pretty. It's a pretty good bracket for Winfield.
It's a very interesting bracket. One thing that's a little unlucky is that Notre Dame dropped out of the top 15. I thought they would be the number 1 and 2 seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame would play Winfield in the semifinals if they got there.
Right.
Notre Dame would have to beat Waco at Waco to even get there, by the way, which would be a tough one. And then North Mahaska is the other high
North
seed in
Mahaska.
that
They're good.
bracket. That would be the team that would more than likely, but you never know, be the team that one of our top teams would face in the championship. So go check that out. Winfield Mount Union rolling. They've got the Super Conference Championship against Mediapolis, a team that they have beaten on Friday at SCC. And another team that will be playing in the second place game is the Waco Warriors. And it was a battle of second place Waco and third place Lone Tree last night at Lone Tree. 1 Tree, as a lot of people like to call it. And 60-45 Waco. 19 points from both Grace Coble and Ella Kissel. Oh, this is the other. Sorry about that. I fibbed earlier when I was talking about the Mount Pleasant boys having 4 scores. Waco only had 4 kids score in the girls' game last night. All double-digit scores. Grace Coble and Ella Kissel 19 each. Emma Wagler had 12. Katie Lichty with 10. So the seniors showing out right there.
Yep.
Working down the line here. Louisa Muscatine 40-21 winners over Pekin. So the Panthers in a little bit of a defensive struggle there. Struggle a little more than the Falcons. Hillcrest Academy falls to Wapello 45-27. Wapello is up 11 points at the end of 1 quarter, and it was a 7-point difference between those last 3 quarters. So Hillcrest is moving up. They're improving, but still haven't got that win yet. New London and Van Buren County in their final South Division games had their hands full. Not their final because there's games on Thursday, but Notre Dame 74-32 over New London. That was a tough one. Sophie Millot and Miley Miller had 8 points each in that one. Van Buren County's playing that number 12 ranked Mediapolis team. They're ranked 12 in 2A. And it was 60-19 Mediapolis on that one. Ivy Davidson, Callie Crack had 6 points each. Annabelle Kormeyer with 8 rebounds and 3 assists on that. She only scored 3 points. But Mid-Prairie girls, we talked about them earlier. 58-34 over Tipton. They just keep rolling. And again, as I mentioned earlier, they've got 1 game left in the River Valley for the championship at Regina on Friday. Cardinal, in their South Central Conference debut, has hit the conference in a rough time because there's a lot of good teams, and one of those is Clark, 59-28. Yep. Clark over Cardinal. And Keota, I have to triple check to make sure that these box scores are right. According to the line score, English Valley was up 19-0 last night. Keota came all the way back, lost by 1 point, 47-46.
Wow.
Which it's 47-46 sounds exactly about about what it was going to be. Scored 20 points in the fourth quarter to try and get that comeback. That is a tough one. By the way, Cardinal and Keota play on Friday in a girl-boy doubleheader. Oh. So there we go. A couple of our teams showing down. And that's all I got for the girls. How about the boys?
Yeah, well, looking at the boys' side, kicking off right where you left off. Keota, 71-48 over English Valleys. Keota's one of those teams that's, no one really talks about, but they had a kind of a lopsided loss against Waco, obviously. But
yep.
I think this is their 17th win here. I think they're 17-3 now. Seeming like I haven't seen them yet, but it seemed like a team, from the box score that you wouldn't want to meet up in the postseason. I've
seen them on video a few times.
But really, it was never in doubt for the Eagles. 15-8 after the first, 17-14. Outscored them 17-14 in the second, 24-12 in the third, and ended it on a 15-4 quarter there. Evan Vidito led Keota with 23 points. Sawyer Stout and Cole Kindred both had 14 in that one. Winfield Mount Union, big win, 71-29 over Highland. The Wolves led 14-9 after one, 35-16 at the half, and 58-20 after the third. Jake Edwards led the Wolves with 16 points. Cam Buffington, 16 as well.
We retweeted a back-to-back dunks from Cam Buffington.
I was actually going to
thank
you for reminding me. I was going to say that. I was like, I was going to ask you to see those back-to-back dunks, but then you're the one to retweet.
I almost sent to Nick to throw them on while we talked about it, but
Yeah.
it was going to be like not that much time, so I didn't want to put that pressure on.
And that one was a poster. The second.
Yeah, the second one was. He's
a freak athlete.
He's good.
Carter Lloyd had 13. Number 4 Waco, 66-28 over Lone Tree. 18th win in a row for the Warriors, and they clinched the North Division with this one. So huge win for the Waco Warriors.
Yeah,
over there.
for first year back in the North Division.
Yeah.
They walked in and they were
Not
the
too bad, huh?
champions. Yeah, not too bad.
Pretty much dominating performance for Waco in this one. They took each of the 4 quarters 25-12, 20-5, 14-3, and 7-5 in the fourth there. Hunter Hughes leading on the night, 15 points. Cody Graber at 11. Colton Lichty had 9. Pekin 69-53 over Louisa Muscatine. After a slow first quarter for the Panthers in this one, they really picked it up in the final 3 there. They trailed 9-6 after 1, but outscored the Falcons 22-17, 20-9, and 21-18 in each of those final 3 quarters. Pekin's kind of a team that kind of surprised me. I feel like they're kind of over there in their own little area, kind of in the Cardinal area. But I was at that game.
Area.
Yeah, well, I guess I shouldn't say Cardinal.
Yeah, I
area,
gotcha.
But over there to the west there. I went over there and watched them play Hillcrest, and ended up picking a big win over there. And Pekin, I think I was kind of mentioning you earlier. I think they're the 3 seed right now. I think so.
Oh yeah, well I can tell you right now. I was going to surprise you, but breaking news. I have a little breaking news.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Drum roll, please. I just got an email. The Southeast Iowa Super Conference boys basketball shootouts are back and are out, and Pekin is the 3 seed. Waco, West Burlington, and Winfield, Mount Union versus Notre Dame at SCC. This is on February the 4th, which is Saturday. And we've got Pekin at New London, Louisa Muscatine at Danville, Hillcrest, Mediapolis, Wapello, Holy Trinity, Lone Tree, Van Buren County, Columbus, Central Lee. So, we'll tweet
good
those
matchups
out.
there.
Yeah.
But obviously, Pekin gets a win there. Hillcrest Academy, talked about them, 63-38 over Wapello. The Ravens trailed 25-20 at the break, but they outscored the Arrows 43-13 in between the two final quarters in that one. So big finish there. I got some big numbers here. Luke Chirac goes for 27 in the win. Grant Bender 23, Seth Hours 5. Didn't have any stats for this one, so I just got the final score. We kind of mentioned in the break. Burlington Notre Dame 79, New London 57. So that kind of propelled the Nikes into the in the second spot there in the South. So a tough loss there for New London, but.
Cade Benjamin, by the way, last I heard was waiting on an MRI on it. He's got a lower body injury, so I assume he was not playing last night. He definitely wasn't the game before, so that'd be a huge loss.
Huge loss for the Tigers there.
Okay.
Tipton 51, Mid Prairie 49. Tough loss for the Golden Hawks here. The Tigers led 18-9 after the first and 30-21 at the break. The Golden Hawks kind of clawed back into this one. They outscored the Tigers 15-11 in the third and 13-10 in the fourth, but just didn't quite have enough to get there, get back on top on that one. Cameron Pickard led Mid Prairie with 14 points. Sean Dodds ended with 10. Nace Peck had 8. Cardinal played Clark. Tough one for the Comets in this one, 75-53. They fall in this one. They were down 22-11 after one, 38-25 at the half. Cardinal took the third 20-19, but was outscored 18-8 in the final quarter. Tough loss for Cardinal there. And then the final score of the night. Didn't have any stats on this one when I checked early this morning. Haven't checked since though. But Mediapolis 66 over 66-38 over Van Buren County. Obviously Mediapolis, great team up there. Well, they've played with the likes of New London and Winfield Mount Union. Actually beat Winfield Mount Union and. So a little tough loss for Van Buren County in that one.
Yeah, that was an unlucky final home game because it was senior night for Van Buren County last night. So that was Van Buren County and Meepo have had some big postseason matchups in the last few weeks. So just to reiterate on this weekend's games, by the way, because we're going to go to commercial here in a second, along with the SEC Championship, basically Mount Pleasant against Burlington on Thursday, and along with the River Valley Championship, basically for the girls basketball with Mid Prairie Iowa City Regina on Friday. You've got the Super Conference Championship on Friday between Winfield Mount Union and Mediapolis, 2 ranked teams. You've got the Super Conference Boys Championship on Saturday night. Waco, West Burlington, ranked and undefeated teams. Waco's number 4 in 1A, and West Burlington is number 6 in 2A.
Yep.
And that is not all we have this weekend. It's going to be a busy 3 days, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more at the back end.
Yep.
I almost said the south end. That doesn't really make any sense. Of this 2-minute commercial break. So we will be right back to talk a little girls state wrestling tournament.
Yep.
Protection is important, especially when you're talking about your dreams, which is why we're going to keep you covered with plans that can save you up to 23% when you bundle your home and auto. That's protection.
Family owned and operated by Andy and Sarah Ross, Ross Auto has been your vehicle repair and maintenance headquarters since 1935. We specialize in all makes of cars and light-duty trucks. With our variety of available services, let us help you keep rolling and your vehicle operating efficiently. Services include general auto repair, alignments, brakes, fuel injection, and more. Schedule your appointment today at 319-653-5656. That's 319-653-5656.
We're back, Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk live, and this has been a long, I can hear Nick's heart beating over there because he's got some news break to do after this show. So stay tuned to this channel.
Yeah.
We got a long one. We're going to jump right into the girls' state wrestling tournament information for tomorrow. I think there's a live stream on the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union website. If not, we'll have coverage of it, obviously. Mm-hmm. I will be there bright and early tomorrow at Extreme Arena in Iowa City. Because we got a lot of kids in there. You know, we had no regional champions, so we don't have anybody that's a top 8, that's a top 7 seed. We do have an 8, but we've got a ton of kids in there, and it's the first day ever sanctioned girls wrestling tournament in the state of Iowa, which means there will be some champions crowned on Friday night that will be first time sanctioned champions. It's all one class, so I know in the boys wrestling there's 3 classes. Yep. It's all one class, so I'm just going to roll through some of the kids taking the mat tomorrow. We're just going to go lightweights to the heavyweights, and we'll rattle off here. Mid-Prairie's Gabby Robertson is going to be one of the first kids on the map. She's in the 100-pound bracket. Fairfield's Olivia Abbott and Mount Pleasant's Ella McNamee, they're the 13 and the 14 seed, but they're on opposite sides of the bracket. They had a chance to go against each other. They'll be wrestling in 105.
I've seen them have a nice little battle this year.
Yeah, I thought we might see it again, but now they'd have to go to the championship. But they could wrestle on the wrestlebacks, I guess.
Yep.
We'd rather see it in the championship. Riley Rice at 110 for Waco. When the 115 starts, we got Angelina Rolling from Highland. 135, we've got Mid-Prairie's Ellie Brenneman and Pekin's Leela Miller. Miller was 4th place finisher. She just got in. She was kind of our last girl in type thing. She's got a really tough girl to go against. They're both at 135. Mid-Prairie's Grace Conway and Mid-Prairie's Mia Garvey at 140 and 145 respectively. We got Tegan Solentich, which I believe was on the Washington Coaches Show. Thumbs up, Nick. I thought so the other day, so please go and check that out. They'll talk with her a little bit. She's our highest ranked wrestler at number 8, and she will be going against a girl from Keokuk, so a little familiar foe right there. It's funny, that's just the math. They don't pay attention to if these guys have wrestled before. They just rank them and put them together. She's the 8 seed there. She's our highest seed. That's at 155. Mid-Prairie's Ellie Callahan at 170, and then Waco's Grace Ford at 190, and Waco's Braylon Wagner at 235. Now, the morning, it starts at 9. The morning session ends at 3 o'clock. They got first round, second round, and the first wrestlebacks. Then later on, they got the quarterfinal and 2 more rounds of wrestlebacks on Thursday. If you make the semifinals, you advance to Friday, although if you're still in the wrestlebacks, you also advance to Friday. And then by the end of the day on Friday, they will crown champions. So at the same time as we'll be crowning a potential Super Conference basketball champion, we'll have, for Thursday, once the girls wrestling stuff starts on Thursday, it's just nonstop action till the end of Saturday, basically. So there are live links on the Iowa Girls Athletic Union, as I said. I'll be there running around trying to get a picture of everybody. I got a couple rounds to do it, and then get back here for basketball that night. And then we had, let's see, you want to jump into your Super Conference champions? We had some boys wrestling. We had, you go Super Conference first, and I'll follow up the SEC.
I think it's, I think it's safe to say that we have some of the best wrestlers in the state down
Definitely,
in this area.
Especially in the Super Conference.
But yeah, we had the Southeast Iowa Super Conference Wrestling meet this past weekend here. lot of top place finishers, great showings by Union area teams. For the Union area, Columbus WMU and Winfield Mount Union placed second as a team with 176 points. Van Buren finished sixth with 92.5. New London was seventh with 63.5. Highland was eighth with 61.5. Waco ninth, 60, and Pekin was 10th with 42. Winning the night was Burlington Notre Dame with 242.5 points. Obviously, they're as a team they're kind of in a league of their own.
Yeah.
But for Columbus WMU, they had one champion on the day. Russell Coyle won the conference title at 285. Ian Estudillo, Ty Scorpill, and Ethan Palmer were all second place finishers. And that was at 113, 120, and 195 for those three. Van Buren County's Colt Boyles at 106 and Corbin Camp at 132 each finished second. For New London, Dom Lopez is their conference champion at 160. Obviously, I believe he's number 1 or 2 rated wrestler in Class 1A at 160, I believe. Trent Wilkerson finished second at 220. Highland's top finisher, conference champion, Carlos Valenzuela, took first at 132. Seen a lot of improvement from him. Obviously, he was, I think, a second place finisher at the sectionals last year.
Yeah, I believe he was.
I believe
Definitely state qualifier last year.
So big win for him there. Let's see here. Waco had a pair of second place finishers. Loudon Housing Gate at 160, Jonathan Heather at 285 each finished second. And then for Pekin, Gavin Brown at 170 and Blake Jewell at 182 each were second place finishers. So nice little showing from our area teams in the Southeast Conference, and obviously they've got their heads, I guess, got their eyes, focused here towards the postseason, trying to make it to state.
Yep, couple weeks until the district meet. Well, 1 week till the district meet. If you're watching this Thursday or Friday, the Southern Iowa Classic was in Fairfield this weekend. That's basically the SEC Wrestling Championship, except they invited their schools. Yep. Funny enough, the only school that came along that was not an SEC school was PCM, Prairie City Monroe. They got a pretty good wrestling team, and they ended up winning. I don't think that they were crowned Southeast Conference champions.
Nope.
But they did beat all the Southeast Conference teams. They won that thing with 202.5 points. That's they won that by 32.5 points. So good night for PCM. If there are any PCM fans that accidentally misclicked and are watching the show right now. Fairfield fourth, 135.5 points. Washington 111 for fifth, and Mount Pleasant 56 for sixth. So right there, 4, 5, 6. We had a couple champions. Fairfield's Kale McCabe dominated. That was a little round robin, and he didn't hardly break a sweat, it seemed. And at 113, Zach Westerkamp at 132 from Fairfield, and a guy that Westerkamp has had a couple of matches with, Aaron Boone at Washington, champion at 120. Chase Griner at Washington, champion at 160. A couple second places. Fairfield's Kason Miller lost 4-3 in the championship at 145. So he got second. Ray Smithberg, 220, second place finisher for Fairfield. For Washington, we had, let's see, Caden Griner, Caden. I almost messed it up, but I didn't. Caden Griner got second. Jack Cleese, Caden Griner got second at one. I don't have his weight here. And Jack Cleese wrestled at the 138 bracket. He also got second. Mount Pleasant had one second place finisher, William Birdsell, at 182 pounds. So again, there's not an official Southeast Conference championship, but that basically is what it is. Yep. The actual SEC team championship is in the decided during the day. So there we go. Crazy weekend in wrestling, just like basketball. We still got a little bowling to talk about. Yeah. Fairfield and Washington showed down, but it was a triangular. Somebody else was there too.
Centerville was there as well. Pretty successful day for Fairfield. Trojan boys and girls both got wins on the day. The boys put up 2,408 total points, and the girls had 2,007. Washington finished with 1,214 in the boys' meet, and on the girls' side it was 1,054. Centerville, Washington got third on both sides. Centerville second, 2,194 points for Centerville on the boys' side, and on the girls' side, 1,747 points. For the Fairfield boys, Chase Johnson, Dason Workman, Ethan Cass, and Ian Appalara all went 1 through 4 for them. Johnson had 379 pins, Workman 359, Cass 358, and Appalara 346. For Washington, on the boys' side, Cooper Zoss, 217 pins, Gabriel Castillo, 216 pins, and then Kevlar Lopez, 187 pins. For the Fairfield girls, Ray Arrett and Elizabeth Hoopman took the top 2 scores. Arrett tallied 330 pins, Hoopman 327. For Washington, Brittany Devaney finished 3rd with 269 pins. Emma Chenoweth was 9th with 233 pins, and Emma Loeffler took 10th with 231 pins. And obviously, for the Washington girls, they don't have a full squad there, so the score's a little lower than they normally are. Mm-hmm. So just a little bowling over this past week here. So
in Fairfield at Flamingo Lanes.
Yep.
And Mount Pleasant went over to Keokuk last night. And Keokuk, as I think I said last week, is the toughest place to play in the Southeast Conference when you're talking about bowling. Boys fell 26-42 to 22-81. That is despite a 352 from Jonathan Fortin, defending Southeast Conference champion. Jack Ryan Smith 344, and Christian Brock Wagner had a 310 on the boys' side. Which, by the way, the boys between Keokuk, Fairfield and Mount Pleasant's been pretty close this year.
Yep.
Girls, not so much. Keokuk girls have been rolling everybody. They outscored Mount Pleasant 27-55 to 23-10 last night. A huge game for Bethany Drury, the 391. In fact, her high game was 216. Did you ever bowl 216?
Can't remember.
I wonder if Chad Drury's ever bowled a 216. Shout out Chad again. 291, our old colleague. Addison McGarity at 336. She usually leads them.
Yep.
And a 300 for Kayla Burns. And so a tough place to play for all Mount Pleasant. The SEC Bowling Championship's coming up pretty soon. And I think by the scores that we've seen recently, the boys will be up for grabs. The girls, someone needs to either grease Keokuk's lanes a little more than they should be, or play out of their minds, because Keokuk's putting up some crazy point totals.
It always seems like Keokuk's always like, I don't know, it's like one step ahead or something. I don't know.
Something about bowling in Keokuk. I don't really get it. Their town is on a slant a little bit, the main drag. So maybe that's something they're used to.
I don't know. My cousin went to Central Lee, and he was bowling at. He went to college for bowling.
They bowled with Keokuk.
My cousin went to college for bowling, and he bowled at Keokuk.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think I asked him one time. I was like, "How are you guys so good at bowling?"
What I don't get is they fill the bowling lanes when you're going against Keokuk bowling. Yeah. They got the best bowling fans around, so at least 4th to our 3 bowling teams. That's all we have today. It was a long show, so stay tuned. Nick is going to throw me out of this chair and then do news break here pretty soon. We are here every Wednesday at 2 o'clock.
Occasionally later, or
occasionally a little later, depending on stuff like that. Follow us on Twitter at Union Sports Page. Share this to your friends. Let's try and get back up to 600 views like we did last week.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And and follow us on Twitter, especially this weekend, because it's a crazy weekend in sports.
Busy.
One of the busiest of the whole year.
Friday,
and the next 3 weeks will be the busiest of the year. So stick with us.
Yep.
South Stout Union Sports Talk for Hunter Moeller and Nick Steffens. I am Andy Kutzinger, and we will see you.
See you when?
Next week.